Welcome to the Shifting the Narrative video podcast, all around the shifting narrative in business, communication, sustainability, regeneration, the outdoors, adventure. Today we've got an amazing guest, Mr. Mark Shayler, a true visionary and creative. So, without further ado, Mark Shayler. So, the Mark Shayler bio. I mean, where do we start with that one? Mark helps big companies think like small ones, and small companies think like big ones through his consultancy, Ape. And now there is hyperbole in almost any podcast introduction ever, but I don't think we need to exaggerate Mark at all. Honestly, Mark is truly a unique figure and one of the kindest people in sustainability and business. I honestly say that. Positive, optimistic, your energy is absolutely infectious. And your perspectives are genuinely completely different. And not just different to be different, but different in a way which actually inspires people to do things, which is something I think a lot of people could take a leaf out of your book on. Your consultancy, your coaching, focus on creativity and innovation for products, services, business models, in purpose and sustainability. And in doing a bit of research, this is pretty amazing. You've saved clients in excess of 140 million pounds per year.
160 now.
160 million.
Yeah.
Every year in environmental improvements. You share my vision that business is the vehicle for mass positive change.
Yeah.
And I think you share my vision that without a margin, you have no mission. So increasing sales of products by 8,000% through introducing circular business models and circular economy models, whilst training 2,000 people in sustainability, from the Nikes and the Coca-Colas of the world to the Uglies and the Hyatt Denims of the world. That's a pretty amazing little repertoire you've got going on there.
Yeah, I've been lucky. That's for certain.
I mean, this bio could go on for another 20 minutes. So I highly recommend anybody to check you out online, hear you speak, read your books. But today I've got no agenda. We're just going to take it where it goes.
Let's just chat, yeah.
Let's just chat. I mean, maybe we start with what we're doing later on today. What we're doing. Why am I wearing a festival shirt right now?
That's a normal shirt, isn't it?
That's a festival shirt for me. I'm all black.
So here's my thing, Joss. You got to dress for a festival every day. And then you might have that amount of fun. You might do. If you dress for a funeral every day, then you might have that amount of fun. And I got lost in this many years ago. So as a kid, I loved dressing up. And my mum used to say to me in the mornings, who do you want to be today? And I'd say, and she meant, do I want to put my Batman costume on? Or I grew up in the late 60s and early 70s. Or do you want to put your spaceman costume on? Always a favourite. And I took it literally. Who do I want to be today?
Love that.
But the link with clothes is fascinating. If I get nervous, which I do sometimes, I've got one suit. It's a copy of a Tom Ford suit. It's unbelievably tartan, or plaid if you're American. And I absolutely love it. And if I put that on, nothing is going to get in my way. And if I want to just be playful, then I'll put something playful on. And a really good friend of mine used to have a studio near to where Damon Albarn, who used to be a friend of mine back in the day, records. And he said he could always tell which band Albarn was recording with by what Damon was wearing. Mm. So if he came in jeans and docks and a tee, it's Blur. If he came in black with like suede boots, then it was going to be The Good, the Bad and the Queen. If he came on his BMX wearing shorts, which he did, it was Gorillaz. And I really like this whole idea of signalling how playful you want to be by what you wear. So it's a serious point. You should wear festival shirts more often.
It's funny because you should. There's photos. I'm going to try and keep them offline forever. But my 18-year-old self would be wearing like my grandma's knitted, multicoloured cardigan with bright red and green trousers.
Nice.
Matching shoes, sometimes not matching shoes. I love
love that.
But now I've literally got like 4 of the same shirt, 5 of the same shirt, just so that I can just go. But maybe I need to go back to more of the flamboyant festival
I think
outfits.
let him out more often, but not all the time. And there's a simplicity in the Mary Kondo school of dressing, right? Everything shades of grey or black. And you have to think about it. It's a uniform.
That's it.
But actually, some people want to see inside you, and you need to allow them to do that.
So what are we doing this afternoon?
We're going to do a panel about how creativity can change the world, if not save the world. And it's a question I've been asking myself. I've been in business for 32 years. And in fact, there's some real, to back at you, thank you for your really lovely warm words. What you've done with Enviral is what I dreamed of doing with a kind of creative sustainability agency. I was too design focused rather than comms focused, and I couldn't have done it because I don't have your skills. And that, I think, business is the thing that's messed the planet up. It's the only thing that can save the planet, and that's a really unfashionable thing to say, but I think it's the truth. If we're going to hit scale, that's where we have to go.
But communications is the thing that connects hearts and minds. Connecting hearts and minds needs arts.
Yeah.
So we're going to a music festival called Forwards Festival. Epic that there are places like music festivals who are putting climate forefront of their programming. And yeah, the importance of arts is obviously something that we need to be really looking at the moment, with the message of climate becoming so desensitized by the same terminology, with the same visual identity. How important is arts for this?
It's essential. I have a campaign, and this campaign is long running, and it's born of frustration when I was at school, not being able to choose an art, a science, and a humanity.
Yeah.
I wanted to do physics, English, and geography, and it just didn't work. I had to do one in the evening. It was horrible. At some point, somebody said, art and science are separate. Now, Leonardo da Vinci was never told that. He was never told, stop drawing and carry on inventing the helicopter. He was never told, stop being anatomically correct about the body and crack on with a bit of painting. They were the same thing. We have separated them at our peril. And when we become so myopic that we just look at the science and we forget the creativity, we're in a mess. When we're so myopic that we just look at the creativity and the emotion and we forget the science, we're in a mess. They are bedfellows interwoven. And interestingly, the words ecology and economy have been equally sort of rifted and put over here. Ecology is about care and economy is about careless. And that's not true. They both share the same word, which is eco, which comes from the Greek word oikos, meaning home. So they're both about keeping your house in order, one in one way and one in the other. So I'm a massive believer in re-intertwining art and science. And when we look at the communication, when we look at sustainability, I failed. I've been doing this for 32 years, and there are some people who only just get it, right? I failed to communicate well. I know the science, I know the urgency. What I've lacked is the communication skills. And I'm not that bad, right? But my world is. So, yeah, creativity, art, communication, that's what's hindered our job.
So what are the actual mistakes that specifically businesses and brands are making in failing to communicate the climate crisis?
Okay, so number one, a business is only judged legally by, it has one responsibility, which is to return value to shareholders.
Yeah.
And the only way we've been able to measure value historically is in money. The lead thing in my bio is 160 million saved a year. I do exactly the same thing. We can now measure value in significantly more elaborate, textured and colourful ways. And we need to embed some of that legally. I think that's a massive thing, number one. Number two, a business has traditionally seen growth as more sales, not better sales. The challenge we have is how we make more money by selling less stuff. And business isn't geared up for that. It's geared up for getting more boxes out of the door or more services out of the door, rather than just more money in the door and leaving the consumer, I hate that word, the customer feeling really happy and believing in the business. Number 3, and we're seeing there's a rash of this right now, this whole greenwashing, or a really good friend of mine, Claire, uses the phrase green cocking, and I love it. This whole idea of peacocking and greenwashing, and you create a portmanteau that is green cocking, and we see this all the time. And so this trend, this movement that we've seen to say, look how good we are over here, but ignore us over here. A quick look at Badger, that is something that is slowly being eroded. In the UK, we're very lucky. We have an incredibly active Advertising Standards Authority, the ASA, and they have clamped down really hard on greenwashing recently. So hard that some of the things they've banned I don't think are greenwashing. I think they're really good. However, I'll take that. I'd rather have them 2 out there and pull them back in than have them 2 in here and have to say you need to do more. So I think they're the main challenges and the main things that brands have done wrong. And they've also tried to oversimplify things. They've tried to make it easy to understand by demonizing one issue, a single issue, and that varies, that single issue. And it's much more complex than that. We failed to explain complexity, we failed to explain science, and in the early days, I mean, the whole idea of a carbon footprint was generated by the petrochemical industry in order to make people feel that they needed to do more. And we do, but there's a responsibility that sits out there as well.
It's really interesting because, obviously greenwashing is getting harder and harder to spot. And I think there's an interesting movement at the moment with collaboration. So I put on some boots earlier. Adidas have collabed with Parley, an amazing collaboration, but really it's only a small percentage of their huge global organization. You've got, I think Tony's and Ben & Jerry's have
just launched.
Yeah. That's a really, really cool collaboration. But then you've got these really big organizations which are, basically plowing a load of money into like WWF. Is that greenwash? Is that progressive? Is it good? Is it bad? What's your perspective on that?
That's a great question, Joss. I didn't expect anything less from you. Let's go to the first one, the collaborations. I mean, Adidas is a really fascinating brand. They launched Flyknits. They had Flyknit before Nike, but didn't launch it because it wasn't quite right. Nike launched it knowing it was quite wrong, and then put it right on the second iteration. They got all the kudos, right? Adidas, they hold back until they're absolutely ready. The work they've done with Parley, and more importantly, their relationship with Allbirds. I'll be honest, I don't want woolen sneakers, right? I don't want them. I don't think that's the right material for a sneaker. But that sugarcane midsole that Allbirds have developed is genius. And Adidas and Allbirds have collaborated to create a pair of training shoes with a carbon footprint of 2.97 kilogram, which is, compared to the average of 12.6, is astonishingly low. That's amazing. Put it in every shoe. So demonstrate, and that's what they're really good at doing, and going, look at us, here's our big green flag. Now you got to hit scale. And that's where I would not just Adidas, I would criticize many brands for doing that. There are some that really roll it out well, and I'm going to, we can overly pat ourselves on the back with Patagonia, but they're astonishing in what they do because they roll things out. I think it's really important that those other brands and other sports brands exist and other clothing brands exist. Everyone's doing something. No one's doing enough.
I like how, if we go back to that Ben & Jerry's and Tony's example, heritage brand Ben & Jerry's, disruptor brand Tony's, absolutely killing it.
Yeah.
But, you've got a purpose, and that purpose is up front and central in your communications and your DNA. But it's awesome to see other brands adopting that purpose, even though it's not their own purpose.
And I don't give a shit if you steal someone else's purpose. At least you've got one. But it's really interesting listening to you speak. You're so flipping young. Heritage brand Ben & Jerry's, I'm thinking, no, they're a young disruptive brand. It was the Haagen-Dazs that was the heritage. The fight between Ben & Jerry's and Haagen-Dazs. You know that story.
No, tell me.
Oh, it's amazing. So I met Jerry at an event. Or was it Ben? I met one of them at an event. Wonderful, wonderful man, whichever one I met. I think it was Ben. And he tells this story. When Ben & Jerry's started, there were two hippies in Vermont making the most amazing ice creams. And they needed to grow. And to grow, you need to move out of Vermont. So they were trying to get frozen ice cream out of Vermont by putting it on refrigerated trucks and shipping it. And Haagen-Dazs, which at that point were owned by Pillsbury, the big consumer pastry company, Pillsbury got wind that this little hippie shop was sort of doing well. And so Pillsbury went to all of the frozen distributors in America, all of them, and said, you can't carry Ben & Jerry's on the same truck as Haagen-Dazs. And they went, why not? Well, because we won't ship with you. So overnight, Ben & Jerry's lost their route to market. And so they started this campaign, which was called What's the Doughboy Afraid Of? And on the back of I'm going to use pre-decimal terminology here, and it irritates me because I am so anti this stuff. On the back of a pint pot of Ben & Jerry's was two hands, the doughboy's hands, squeezing the life out of Ben & Jerry's. And the strapline was, what's the doughboy afraid of? And they couldn't fight Pillsbury. They're a huge company. But what they could do was they could take to the kind of underground. So they did. They went on college radio. They put adverts on the side of buses, and they put a little helpline number on there. Join the Ben & Jerry's campaign. You had to ring them, give them $10. You got a T-shirt that said Ben & Jerry's Legal Fund major contributor written on the back, and the helpline was dead. No one was ringing it. And then they thought one day, we'll just leave an answer phone on overnight. And it was inundated at 3 a.m. as everybody got the munchies and reached for the freezer. And suddenly this thing caught fire. And this tiny David and Goliath fight caught fire. And in the end, Pillsbury, Haagen-Dazs, they've sold it since, backed down, and Ben & Jerry's became the brand that it is now. I mean, I think it was bought by Unilever, but pretty much left alone by Unilever. They've done a very good job with some companies of leaving them alone, and I think Ben & Jerry's is one of them. And the drive towards their non-dairy ice cream was twofold. Number one, that market was booming, and you could feel that dam was about to burst. And number two, you can ship it ambient. If you can ship a pint, I'm going to use old terminology again, a pint of Ben & Jerry's without refrigerating it, you massively drop the carbon footprint of the product. You know, the beauty of what they've done is they've already taken the cow out, and if now you can ship ice cream at ambient temperatures, you've taken the refrigeration and the freezing in the trucks out. So literally everything gets better and the customer doesn't notice.
Absolute game changer, isn't it? Yeah. So you work with big companies, you work with small disruptors, and you know, ultimately business right now is hard.
Yeah,
it's really hard, especially when the disruptor brands, and I use Ben & Jerry's as a heritage disruptor brand in the purpose space, but you know, there are, whether it's chewing gum, or dating, you've got these brands who are coming into the markets and shaking things up quite quickly as well. But, you know, the fact is that they are still human beings running businesses. What advice do you give smaller organizations, those Davids versus the Goliaths, in one, carrying on, and them really being able to show their purpose and the fact that they're going for it to change the whole industry, because it can be so close when you're running a business, right?
Yeah, it can. And you're right, it's interesting. As you were talking, I got this image in my mind, very visual, of you know, every sector having one or two massive players in it and hundreds of mini pins. Like you've got one or two Goliaths and hundreds of mini pins running around, and that's where you have to be different down there. So it's not enough to say you're green. It's not enough to tell everyone how different your business is because it's whatever. You have to show it. We can see everything now. There's a really great book by a guy called Mark Shayler, no relation, but I think we should set up a law firm, Shayla and Schaefer. And he's written a book called Marketing Rebellion, and he charts the end of lying. You know, more doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette. No, they don't. They really don't. And then the end of hiding. Try our donuts with added vitamins to pep you up. No, it's not the vitamins that are the issue. It's the sugar and the fat that's the issue. To the end of control. You can't say what you are anymore. We tell you what you are. It's us that are in charge of your brand now. And if we look at those three marketing revolutions, then I think there's a fourth, which is the end of romancing. You know, stop going on about your one mission and tell me how great your product is. I need to know why it's going to make my life better. And so I think those four things, the end of lying, the end of hiding, the end of control, and the end of romancing, point us all down towards one thing, which is a horribly overused word, but being really authentic. Developing a business that does good, telling the truth about it, using science-based targets and science-based communication to explain why it's better. So it's not about having less plastic, it's about having lower carbon footprint and less residual weight. Be really clear about that. And that will automatically float you above those people that use weasel words and the people that are getting caught by the ASA. It'll float you above those. But having that very clear vision on what you're trying to do, and Simon Sinek said it best, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. Sell that. So a yoga mat manufacturer is competing with other yoga mat manufacturers. They are also competing with a cycle manufacturer and a golf club manufacturer. Because if I've got an hour to spend doing something that's going to take me to theta brainwaves, I've got all those things to choose from. I hate golf. It's never going to be that one. But I've got all those things to choose from. So I'll go out on my bike or I'll do yoga. Who would have thought they were competitive? But I think they are.
It's really interesting, isn't it? Because like you've got at the moment a audience first approach. Every marketing person, like we need to understand our audience. You know, we have to go through these, in some cases, completely ridiculous layers of behavioral research. Do you think that is beneficial for disruptor brands as well as the big businesses? And where do you think it stifles creativity?
It's a great question. There's lots in there. Okay, first off, stifling creativity. There's a German word, Einstellung, which amongst many things has many nuances in its meaning, but the meaning that I take from it is not letting the success of the past get in the way of the future. So not redoing what you've done. I don't just mean a version 10. I mean not taking the same approach to innovation. Talk to different people. Think differently. What are you trying to do? How are you trying to make your customer feel? Start there. Number two, the whole way that we categorize and understand consumers is broken. So that whole ABC1, Guardian, Telegraph, New York Times reading, Daily Mail reading, I don't think anyone reads the Daily Mail, they do, sadly. All of those ways of categorizing customers, they're broken. It's not about it. So I've developed a model that we use with 3 or 4 of our clients, which is much more on belief. So it's 3 circles: beliefs in the center, aspirations and behavior. What is it you believe in? And from that, I am more aligned. My nan died a few years ago, but I was more aligned with my nan than I was with similar people who went to university and read the same newspaper as me. My nan was in her 90s. She actually did read the Daily Mail. Right? But our belief systems were really finely attuned. Our aspirations weren't, but our behaviors were again. And if you can tap into the belief system of your consumer, your customer, the citizen, then you can sell your product in a way that isn't just about cheaper. Because if we rush to cheaper, there's only one winner, and the rest of the people, well, they'll go bust in the end anyway. But there was a 4th point here as well, and I can't remember what it was. Oh yeah, so the deep consumer research I think is really important, but I think you can get 90% of the way really quickly. I'm a massive believer in sprint methodology, and I know it's overused. I appreciate move fast, break things. It's boring, but I'm gonna twin it with move fast. Once you know what you want to do, spend more time on the mat working out where your product is, what your customer's all about. Once you've got your trajectory right, then move fast. Otherwise, you could be moving in the wrong direction really quickly. So spend more time thinking, then go. And the way that I spend more time thinking is I do deep research. So if I'm working, on a new ice cream, for example. We've been on ice cream a lot, so let's go stick with it. A new ice cream flavour, which I do work on. I'll go and talk to people who don't make ice cream. What's going on in the coffee world? Well, actually, what's going on in the coffee world is we're seeing a shift away from washed coffees to unwashed coffees because there's a massive environmental benefit there. An unwashed coffee sees the beans sit in the fruit for longer, the cherry for longer. So much of the flavour is imparted by the rotting cherry. So you get these fermentation, these sourdough tones, and a lot more kind of acidic, citric fit taste to it than on a coffee that has had the fruit washed off straight away and has been over roasted. So that's interesting because when you put milk in an unwashed coffee, it can taste like it's turning, like it's gone off. So you tend to have those coffees black, and if you have them black, you've taken the lactose out, so they taste less sweet. So all of a sudden, when I'm making an ice cream, I'm thinking sourdough, fermentation, less sweet. Well, that's it. I'm not saying we have kimchi ice cream, but there's something here.
Yeah.
So I think that deep consumer research is really important, but I think you need to go a little bit wider. Two standard deviations from the norm, and I think there's a sweet spot there.
So you go and speak to people, but you kind of seem like you're a bit of a people watcher as well. Where's the best place that you people watch?
Oh, there's so many. Stations are my favourite. I'm an old romantic at heart. I love watching people greet each other and say goodbye to each other. But you also get to see how people prepare for the day. So if I come into Euston from my station, I live in the Midlands. I live in Ashby-de-la-Zouch. My station's Tamworth. I come into Euston and I just love people getting ready. And you've got the kind of like urban warrior, earpiece in, wheelie bag, coat on, and they're off and they're locked in. They're not listening to anybody. And I think that's great if you're in a rush. If you're not in a rush, look what you're missing. You've got physical blinkers nearly on. You've got audio blinkers on. You're missing this whole area of walking through Drummond Street and seeing this South Indian population come alive, wake up in the morning, and you're missing all of these cultural cues. So I love stations because I get to see people getting ready to leave. And then I love stations as well because I look at them when they come home. And when they're coming home, what they're seeking is the exhale. They're seeking the... And some go and do that at the Euston Tap. Some will go and do that at Burger King. Some will go to Leon and do it there. Some people will sit outside at the front. Some people will go around to Dewana on Drummond Street and take a thali and they'll sit there. So I love watching people when they don't think they're being observed. So I think stations, and you don't have to go to Euston, they're all as good as each other, are amazing. But the other place, it's really interesting. Watch people shop. Just stand in the supermarket or the clothing retailer and watch people make decisions and watch people talk to one another. The best way of seeing a relationship under stress is in a supermarket. Watching people trying to negotiate what they want and what they don't want. Absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
Where people are, that's where the best places to go. Stations, supermarkets, high streets.
Yeah, on trains, I've witnessed especially different generations, kind of like 17-year-olds scrolling social media platforms. Yeah. I saw somebody on a train once use Spotify in a way that I didn't even know existed, and it was like, wow, it's like, it's so interesting, isn't it? So where'd you get your best ideas from?
Well, you get your best ideas when you're in theta brainwaves. So we operate mainly in beta brain when we're trying to concentrate beta brainwaves. Alpha brainwaves when we've kind of like calmed down a little bit and we're a bit more relaxed. Delta brainwaves are when we're asleep. Theta is the magic. It sits between being a bit more relaxed and asleep. And theta brainwaves is when we are, when you're cycling through Bristol and you think, have I gone past Temple Meads? Or I wasn't even awake, and it's dangerous kind of thing. Or you've driven to, you've driven through the Cotswolds and think, have I gone past Bolton in the water? Yes, you have. That's theta brainwave. When you're in the shower, you know where everything is, you know your regime, you get on a thing and you're in theta brainwaves. It's the bit you hit just before sleep. So I have my best ideas when I'm in theta brainwaves. Now, I do meditate because it's 2022. I'm 54 next week. It's compulsory to eat kale, eat kimchi, juice vegetables, not fruit, whittle a spoon, and ride my bike in Lycra. That's compulsory. And those last two, whittling a spoon and riding my bike in Lycra, you hit theta brainwaves in those as well. You don't have to meditate. And once you're in theta brainwaves, you're not thinking about the shape or colour or the sound of ideas. You're just letting them come in and go out. And the challenge you have in Theta Brainwave is being able to remember to feel the aftertaste of an idea, so you can write it down. So I have my best ideas when I'm doing something like that. And actually, the other thing that I've done, the sick thing that I have as a middle class vice, is cold water swimming. We used to call it going on holiday, but cold water swimming. And when I swim in the lake near me in Leicestershire, technically I'm not allowed to swim in there, but I do. If I'm stuck on a project, if I'm working with a big client and I've got a bit stuck, I get up early, I walk the dogs, I go into the cold water, I lay on my back in the middle of the lake, I watch the kingfishers come across, and I'm not trying to answer the problem. I flip over and I swim out to the kind of shorey bit, and 9 times out of 10 the answer comes to me. Theta Brainwave always is where I get my best ideas from. It's never a place, it's never a person, it's only in me.
So, I absolutely love the story of accidental entrepreneurs. In fact, we know a few that we're both big fans of. Big ups, Eve from Baba and Boo.
Oh, what a wonderful woman.
I know, right? Such a hero. Why are the accidental entrepreneurs so important to this movement?
Well, that's a brilliant question. I love an accidental entrepreneur because they haven't gone out to make money. They've gone out to make a difference. Eve's a really good example. I think my friend Cassandra from Propercorn is a really good example. My friend Yvonne from Kemi Telford, another amazing example. She just wanted to shine light on women, and she brought her Nigerian heritage to clothing. I mean, it's amazing. So I think they're less concerned by profit, even though all of those three are very successful, and more concerned by how they make people feel. And I think, this has been a theme, right, throughout the conversation. And I think if you call yourself an entrepreneur or a founder, I think there's a real issue there. Why? What are you trying to entrepreneur? What are you trying to find? Probably yourself in the last definition, actually. I think if you focus on the thing that you're doing, how it makes people feel, that to me is why accidental entrepreneurs matter, because they're not focused on the short term, they're focused on a bigger fight.
I think it's so interesting, isn't it? I mean, and often they are the people who put so much pressure on themselves. As soon as they do build that team, because often what they are building is the right thing for the market.
Yeah.
They've got to that place because they wanted it.
Yeah.
In their own lives, or their friends, or specific audiences are saying, yeah, we need this. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because I can imagine you're speaking to the biggest brands in the world, and you might even be using some of those brands as case studies.
Yeah, I am. And that's why the biggest brands in the world like me. Because I said, what's happening around the edges? Because they can't see. I did this in Sydney about 6 years ago. Big client. And I said, when I run a workshop, I send people out on a little safari. Go out and find 4 clues about, and in this case, 4 clues about hyper-personalization. This client is based around the corner from where the workshop is. There's nothing around here. Well, go and have a look. Put different goggles on. Go and see what you can see. They came back and they were looking for clues, little audio bits, little videos, little photographs. And they came back alive. These are the streets they walk every single lunchtime. There's a perfumer around the corner that'll make perfume just for me. Yep, that's right. There's a sandwich bar around the corner that will do anything that I ask it to. Yeah, do you never go there? No, I just go to, and they named a brand, right? And there's a tailor around there that will give me not just a 3-piece suit, which I think actually double breast is going to be huge again, by the way. That's my top fashion tip. But they'll give me 4 buttons instead of 3. And they walk around there all the time. And all I've done is say, ask a different question. Look differently. I think we sit and are surrounded by amazing small businesses who are just one lucky decision away from growth or failure. And big businesses use me because I can see those small businesses. I don't see them all, but I can see those small businesses and help lift them. And sometimes some of the small businesses that I've worked with, all I've done is met them 3 times and gone, keep going. And sometimes I've done much, much more than that. But I think every big business employs amazing people, even though the big business may not be easy to like. And some of my clients are not easy to like. I know that. Every single one of those amazing people has an aspiration to do something different or something positive. And my job is to help them do that within the confines of a large organisation that, on the face of it, cares less than small organisations. In reality, that's where we hit scale. That's how we make big change.
There's good people in bad companies, right? That's
Always.
the thing. Always.
And there's bad people in little companies, right? Trust me, I've come across this numerous times.
Yeah. So who is, I mean, there's probably going to be a few that come to your mind, but who's the most inspiring person you've met in the sustainability and business space?
Oh, God. Okay, I'm going to give you 3 or 4. You're one of them.
Wow.
Now, I'll tell you why you're one of them, because you don't know that you shouldn't be here. You don't know that you shouldn't have been doing this. You don't know that there were people out there who have been trying to do it for years, and you've just gone ahead and done it. And that's amazing. Number 2 is an old hand. John Porritt, he's a really dear friend of mine and has been now for 30 years nearly. And I adore the man. He is so inspiring and so grounded.
Do you know the story of why Enviral basically started? It was because of him.
No, I don't know this story.
Right. So I went to see him speak at the Cheltenham Literature Festival.
Yeah.
And I basically stalked him for like 4 years at the age of 16, because that's when I first got into climate change.
Yeah.
Because of renewable energy. I thought it was cool that basically solar panels or a wind turbine could power the light bulb or the kettle.
Yeah.
And I managed to just contact him through Forum for the Future, and I said, look, I just really want to shadow you. I'm considering basically going into what I did go and study at Leeds University, Environment and Business, only 2 courses in the country.
I taught on that course.
Did you?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, before you did it, I suspect.
Probably.
Yeah, I taught on that course in 98, 99.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I love it. Small world, this. And I didn't actually get the grades to get into Leeds, but I kind of semi-dropped Jonathan Porritt's name a few times, maybe.
That's brilliant.
And he was like, he said, my dear boy, you know, you'd come to my little office in Cheltenham, you'd sit in the corner at 9 o'clock, you'd see me eat a sandwich for an hour, and I'd leave at 5 o'clock, and you'd be dreadfully bored. But if there's anything I can ever help you with, just let me know. And so when I set up Enviral, he gave me an hour of his time. And he gave me another hour of his time. And he was actually the first guest on a podcast that I started. And he's always been there just to answer an email, which is amazing. And what I love about it, last year he turned 70. And as a present to himself, he said that he was going to mentor 70 youth activists. Oh, what a legend, hey?
He's incredible. I see him every 2 or 3 weeks in London.
Amazing.
By mistake often. I have nothing but joy for him. Rachel Carson. I know it's an old book. Silent Spring started everything. She's amazing. And I'd also go with Anita Roddick, actually, the late Anita Roddick. I'm friends with her daughter, Samantha, who is also a firebrand in this world. But what the Body Shop did can never, ever be undone. So, I think we're surrounded by inspiration, and you find inspiration everywhere. You talk to your nan. When my nan was alive, I talked to my nan and I'd find out something amazing she'd done. And we're surrounded by incredible people. If only we'd find the time to talk to them.
So you've written books on public speaking, personal brands in this digital world that we live in seem to be the thing right now. It's almost like a trend.
Yeah.
Do you think that personal brands, are the thing that's going to unlock connecting big, complex conversations around our global challenges like climate change and action?
They could be. It's interesting. It's a great question, that is. Is it personal brands, or is it the fact that it's the threat that personal brands will take over that will motivate bigger organizations to do something differently? You cannot carry on making people fat and ill with your products. You cannot carry on making the planet worse and worn with your products. And I think there's a really important thing that we have to do, and that is to help the creative industries, I hate the phrase, but the design and innovation industries understand that they're not there to move pencil or pixel. They're there to move hearts and minds, and we forget that at our peril.
But you can do that through personal brands, right? Because you can fall in love with people. It's very hard to fall in love with brands, isn't it? Who are standing for this thing often.
Yes, I agree. It's much easier to fall in love with people. And those brands that people fall in love with fast tend to have a creator myth. The one exception to that is Nike.
I know.
And I love Phil Knight, and Shoe Dog's one of my favourite books. And there's everything about what Nike shoes do to my feet that is wrong. I love that brand. How? I shouldn't. On paper, I shouldn't.
Totally.
But I love that brand.
I know.
And so you can fall in love with brands, even ones that aren't always good things, that do good things. But people buy people, as Simon Sinek says, who is also someone that's really... So I met him at an event, and I helped him out with... He was being really harassed by a guy questioning him on money. How come everything I ask your business to do for me comes with a $20,000 bill? And he's like, well, there's only one of me, and there's lots of you, and my priority is not one man in one company. It's events with lots of people from lots of... I want to hit scale, and you know, were you asking about me coming to work with you as a one? Yeah. Well, it's not. You're not a priority. No disrespect, but you should have been offered one of our associates. Were you offered that for $5,000? Maybe. Were you offered an online training workshop for $1,000? Maybe. Were you offered to run your own workshop for free? Maybe. We offered the book for $7.99. Maybe. And he was really hassled by it. And I could see, and I wanted to help him because I'm a public speaker and I know when someone is out of their element, and he was out of his element. And I had a pair of glasses on at the time that glowed in the dark. Don't ask. And and so when it came for the next question, I put my hand up, and he said, the guy with the glasses. And I said, and I used a line from a good friend of mine, a guy called James Victore. I said, Simon, my friend James Victore says, the thing that made you weird as a kid makes you amazing today. What made you weird as a kid? And Simon could then go into what made him weird as a kid. Great, not the end of the story. Afterwards, as he was signing, but he signed books for an hour, he then came and found me. And he said, I owe you. That was amazing what you did. No one's asked me a better question. I said, it's not mine, it's James Victoria's. No one's asked you a better question. Ask me a better question. Have you got time? I'm going a cab ride into London and I want to spend half an hour with you. Like
Huge.
Jonathan Porritt. Yeah, he didn't need to do that. No. He didn't need to do that. So we're surrounded by amazing people and inspiring people. And sometimes they're not in sustainability, but they're not in sustainability either.
They're thinkers. So we are... like everything, time poor.
Yes, we're done, aren't we? Pretty much.
Pretty much. And we could do the whole of this podcast on this one question alone, but I want you to go short and sharp on it. Mm-hmm. You mentioned earlier that you are a big researcher, you're a big reader, you're a big thinker. What's the most misinterpreted thing in sustainability at the moment?
The demonization of materials. There's no such thing as a bad material, but there are absolutely broken systems. And we can become myopic here. And if we become myopic on things like plastic, which has got no place in the ocean at all, if we become myopic on it, which we are, we miss out on some of the bigger issues to do with climate change. Most importantly, the big challenges we face, let's be honest, climate change as a logarithmic factor of 10 is more important than anything else we face. Then it's associated and so kind of like brother or sister impact, biodiversity. No biodiversity, know us. It's no climate, know us. No biodiversity, know us. And if we're going to focus on oceans, which I think are really super important for the first two reasons, the average ocean temperature has gone up by 2 degrees because of climate change. Acidification is rife. That's the single biggest challenge to the ocean is climate change. The next biggest challenge to the ocean is overfishing. Yeah. If you really give a shit about the ocean, stop eating fish. Period. And if you think sustainable fishing is a thing, read the Guardian report on that from literally a week ago. Yeah. The third biggest challenge to the oceans is ocean debris. And in ocean debris, the biggest element of that is animal agriculture runoff, and then arable agriculture runoff. And then it's plastic, which is really fucking important. But if we're not careful, I'll tell you what, I'm going to rewrite that whole answer. The biggest challenge we face, the biggest problem we have is friendly fire. It's people who care about plastic criticising carbon myopia. It's people who care about carbon criticising plastic myopia. It's vegans having a go at regenerative agriculturists. We want the same thing. And you need animals in a regenerative agriculture system, but you need 1/10 of the animals that we've got today. I think the biggest risk we face in our world is friendly fire.
See, I tell you, we could go into this. I'm just gagging to ask you about 30 questions on that, but we're not going to.
We're going to save that for number 2.
Love it. Let's do it. Final takeaways. Favorite book recommendation in business or sustainability?
Oh, Silent Spring. It's the thing that started. The Vance Packard, The Waste Makers, is also excellent. And in fact, Jonathan Porritt's Capitalism as If the World Mattered is brilliant. And do you know what? The Natural Capitalist is also, and The Ecology of Commerce. Go back. There are some amazing books written from the 50s. Vance Packard's was all the way through. There's some brilliant books. Silent Spring.
Have you read Rob Hopkins's From What Is to What If?
Do you know what? I haven't.
From What If to What Is.
And Rob's, I think, a genius. And is written on the vanguard of this. And I haven't read the book, and I will.
I'm going to give you a copy in
Thank
our
you.
office over there. Favourite musician to work to versus favourite musician to walk to?
Okay. Oh, flippy flops. Favourite musician to... So I've discovered I've got ADHD.
Same.
So that has changed how I listen. It used to be a band called Spiritualized.
Yeah.
Actually, it was a band called Spaceman 3, and now I realise that is pretty much close to White Noise, both of those bands. So I listen to White Noise when I'm working. Classical music is often where I go for work. I never thought I'd say that. Favourite bands to walk to. Run the Jewels are my favourite band at the moment. They can do no wrong. They're rapping about things that matter, and they're doing it in a way that is like straight to the heart.
Favourite podcast?
Too many. The Rest is Politics. Alistair Campbell. I'm really enjoying it.
Nice.
I'm really, really enjoying it, and I never thought I'd say that. But yeah, he and Rory Stewart, I think, do a brilliant job with that podcast.
And if you could work with one person of influence, who would it be?
If I could work with one person, I would work with... Oh, it's hard. Because I mean, Musk is clearly influential, but he's not easy to like. I drive one, but it's not easy. Jack Ma. Is it Jack Ma from Alibaba? That talk about trying to turn a supertanker around. Or the people that own Shein. This isn't easy. I specialise in finding really unpopular companies and working with them. But I think that's where we need to go. I mean, I know John really well, so it wouldn't be John Porritt. He's lovely. Yeah, it would be someone like that. Someone who is perceived to be not on our side. A Zuckerberg. I don't know, someone like that.
And final one. What made you weird as a kid?
Dressing up, ADHD. I didn't know I had. Didn't even know it was a thing. And my observation skills. The key skill of any design thinker is the way that we see the world. And I'd sit and watch people, and I'd wonder why. And I'd also try and project what my life would be like if I was so and so. If I was walking home from school as Stuart Jordan, what would I see? What would I hear? What would happen when I got in? What would I do? How would I talk to my sister? Projection and observation. There you go. Never thought of that before.
Mark, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for everything you do.
No.
Honestly, what you've set up with Viral is astonishing and awe-inspiring.
We're going to go up to Forwards Festival. We're going to talk about arts and climate change for further hours, which is great, and probably go dance in a field, which sounds pretty cool, doesn't it? I'm
definitely doing the latter.
Thanks so much, Mark.
Thanks, mate.
So what do we say about Mark Shayler? Although I don't actually know Mark very well, he's the type of person that feels like a friend that you haven't seen for a long, long time. And he is genuinely at the forefront of some of the most important conversations within networks of people who are genuinely moving the needle when it comes to climate action, when it comes to business transformation, when it comes to social inclusivity and diversity. And I think that he is the type of person who is able to almost tackle any subject head on, he's got ADHD. And it's a journey that I'm only really self-discovering myself after a few pretty interesting moments in the last couple of years. And I'm pretty sure that this radical out-the-box thinking that is a superpower for people with ADHD and people without ADHD is something that a lot of people can feel almost a bit scared about. But when you've got somebody like Mark flying the flag and genuinely moving conversations forward into action, you can start to see that it's actually not so much a thing you should be scared of. And yeah, it's a brilliant opportunity to almost reflect, no matter who you are and where you have come from and what your motive is to listening to this podcast and seeing him speak and following him on social media, or doing qigong with him in the morning on Instagram, which he does, I think, 3 times a week for free, just to do it. You can gain something from him, and he's a true gem. So I hope you enjoyed the listen. Definitely go and follow him. Definitely find out where he's speaking or what festivals he's attending. And yeah, I really hope that you like the series that we're going to be releasing. We've got many more episodes to come. So hit subscribe wherever you're listening or viewing. Over and out.